So, how many times would you say you've been handed a report? Well, a report brief, I should say, that essentially says, "Now we have all the data. Can you do some reports, please?"
I think too often people always say, "Hey, we have data, please create a report."
Mhm.
And they don't mean anything bad by it. They just don't know what is needed. They think we can do some magic, I think.
So you're saying that just adding data does not necessarily automatically lead to insight and in the future even to action.
No, unfortunately not. No, because we need to make the data matter.
Mhm.
We need to make sure that people can take action and can do stuff. And I want to help them to do the stuff.
You and I agree. And when we met a couple of years back, we really bonded over the whole idea of making data matter because we both were very frustrated by the fact that people are literally waiting around in data, but what do they do with the data?
Yeah. Yeah.
True.
So let's talk today about exactly that, how we can make data matter. And let's introduce ourselves. Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
That's one of the long questions. So I'm Alexander. I'm from Sweden. I'm a data platform MVP since 8 years. I started working back in the late '90s, which means that this is, yeah, it's white. I'm old, but I've seen so much, so many things come and go, and I've sort of kind of gone full circle. Started very technical, and now I'm more towards business. How do I make data matter? Just like Valerie said, and how do we turn information into insight and into to action? That's my driving force these days.
Yeah. And I'm Valerie. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm also data platform MVP. My specialty is Power BI. So I really love to visualize data, but in a way that it's not only pretty, but actually makes sense. Because I want people to take action with their data. I don't want to create just a pretty report. I want to create something that they can use, that makes sense, that is important to them, and not just one of the 1,000 reports they have anyway.
No, and this reminds me of one of the first times that I came into a client with Power BI, and that they had Power BI for a while, and even worse, they had Power BI and self-service
Mm.
BI, and it sounded like the best idea ever. Everybody and their cat could do reports on their own, and they were drowning in reports, like
Yes.
50 reports supposedly showing the same thing, but not only were the numbers not aligning, nobody knew what are we going to use the report for. So how do you, in your experience, why do people end up there? Why do they generally start building without a clear goal?
I think sometimes it's enthusiasm. They get Power BI, they have data, and they're just like, now I can finally do all the stuff I want to do. And then they just start. They just start track and drop. They don't have that goal in mind. But there's also something that people don't really ask questions. So they just start building and then hope it makes sense. And as a consultant, if I get hired and I wouldn't ask questions, my clients don't tell me really what they want. They're like, I want a human resource report, I want a sales report. And they assume, because I'm the expert, that I know what they need.
Hmm.
But I don't believe in that one size fits all. So I really don't believe that I can create that one human resource report.
So the first time we delivered a workshop together, I showed a picture of Hugh Laurie from the TV series House.
Yeah.
You hadn't seen House at the time, and I said, "Does anybody know who this man is?" And most of the audience, they were smiling and nodding because what House always says is everybody lies. And I'm of the opinion that most of our clients lie too, not by choice. They're not there trying to mislead me in any way, shape, or form, but they don't necessarily know what they're trying to achieve.
No.
And if you don't know where you're going, I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to get there.
Yeah.
So one of the most dangerous questions that we can ask our clients is, what do you want?
Everything.
Well, in a way, everything is a better answer than we don't know, because the answer will always be constrained by their worldview, only like what they know is possible.
Yeah.
And we know so much more what is possible.
Yeah.
But then we sort of kind of get to, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
No.
So two
No.
sides to that coin.
And the problem is you can't ask them what do you want, because often they don't want, or they don't know what they want, or they want everything. We know that. So you need to be very specific with what you ask. You really, as the person creating the reports, already kind of need to know what you want to hear, the information you need.
Mhm.
And that can be very tricky, because you often meet the clients just a very short amount of time. There's like a 1-hour meeting, 2-hour meeting, and then you get the data, you get access, and then you need to start to build something. And in that 1 or 2-hour meeting that you have all the important people at the table, you need to get as much information as possible without getting dragged away by having nice conversations, talking about vacations, these kind of things. And that can be very tough, don't you think?
Oh.
Gathering that information.
For sure, because we're back to, it's so easy to get stuck with the how and the what.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one thing that I just realized that we haven't mentioned, they're sort of kind of two sides to making a report. One is the technical side. How do I clicky, draggy, droppy stuff on my report canvas? How do I make the report? And it is so easy to get stuck in that, because that is a very well-defined space.
Yeah.
You can go to docs, you can look on YouTube, you can find information on how to do something. It is much more difficult to Google or ask Claude or ChatGPT or Copilot about the why.
Yeah.
But if you concentrate on the why conversation, you can probably infer much more of the what and the how than you could ever do if you did it the other way around. So learning how to ask the right questions in those short minutes or hours with the stakeholders, that's what differentiates a good report designer from someone who is really good at well, we're back to making data matter again.
Yeah. And what you're saying, the why are we creating this report?
Mhm.
That can be also a very tricky question, because have you ever tried asking that? Why do you need that report?
Yeah.
How do people react?
Flustered.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean, why?
Yeah.
I need to see the sales numbers.
Yeah.
And me being, so this is an interesting bit of a side. The Dutch are known for being fairly direct. And I'm here to tell you that the Dutch have nothing on the Swedes. We're even more direct. And for me, it's fairly easy to just go, no, what do you mean with you want to see the sales numbers? That's what you think you mean, but what do you want to do with it? Because I would argue that nobody in their right mind wants a BI platform. Nobody cares about a report. It's not about the report. And this is where the hairs stand up on some people's necks, but it's not about the report. It's about what do you want to do with it? How do you drive action?
And how is it supporting you?
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about. You open the report in the morning. How is it going to help you? Where in the process do you open that report? And then what does it help you to do? What does it help you to achieve? What do you see? And what actions will you take after that? And I really believe if you can't answer what are you going to do with the report, that report is not useful.
No, I agree. And be ruthless in getting to the bottom. because otherwise you are going to have reports up to your hips,
Yeah.
and none of them are used. I think you said it very well one of the first times we did a workshop together. You said, well, there's a difference between a topic and a purpose.
Yeah.
You said that, well, either you have, I want to see sales.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. I've seen a ton of sales dashboards. Yes, you said, but either you just want to look at sales, or what if you could see a dashboard that helps a regional manager deciding what products to push for next quarter, for instance. And I realized, oh, wait a second, that makes much more sense, because now we're making data matter, because now we have a clear goal and we know how to move the needle. What do we need from a dashboard or a report to move the needle?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because the topic often is easy. The topic, most companies or most clients or stakeholders, they already know, I want a sales report or I want a human resource report.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but they confuse the topic with the purpose, because just having the report will not give you information.
No.
So, but it can be a great starting point. At least you know what kind of data they want, the type.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you can drill down from there, basically. And that's what I'm always trying to do. I try to find out what they already know. Like, what information do you already have?
Yep.
Okay, you don't know the actions right away. Don't worry. What do you know? Like, is there a report you already have about this? So why are we creating another report?
Yep.
Often there's some information in there, because then they tell you, oh, we are missing this information, or we have 3 different reports and we combine them. So, but often, like, the topic is confused for the action, because people are like, oh, sales. Sales.
Exactly that. What do you mean sales? Of course I want to see sales. It's sort of kind of there's an old movie that you probably haven't seen either, Office Space.
No, I haven't seen that.
So yeah, there's a wonderful scene where one guy is asked, so what would you say you do here? And if you know, you know. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But one of the first things that you showed me when we built the workshop was something that absolutely blew my mind. And that was your dashboard design canvas, or the dashboard development canvas.
Yeah, it has different names,
does it?
depending on who I'm showing it to.
Okay, so you call it banana. And
Banana, yeah. No, it's the report or dashboard creation canvas that I created.
Mhm.
And we have it here. We can show it. This canvas is like a starting point. And I created this for me, and then I put it on my website for free, because I was like, hey, it helped me. It's not the answer to everything. It's a starting point. It helps you to get started, because the things that I'm asking for is the stuff I sometimes forget when I'm in that client meeting, because I'm talking about their vacation and their business and their problems and these kind of things.
It's a good way to keep you on track.
Exactly. And it basically focuses like on what is the topic of the report, like what is the goal, what do we want to achieve, who's the audience, like who are the real people looking at the report. And it's often not the stakeholders, not the people that are paying for it. It's like other people. So who are these people? Because we also need to ask them what they actually need. And this canvas is about like these basics. It's about the current situation, what's like happening at the moment. Do we have a report already? But also about the level of detail, the message in it, the people, who is going to use it, who is involved in this project. Because if I have all that information, it helps me to understand like better what they're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. And you said something that is really key, but most people might not realize. You said the message.
The message.
As in singular.
Yeah.
It is so easy to put everything and the kitchen sink on your dashboard. What was your personal record when it comes to KPIs again?
Oh, 96.
96
I
KPIs
didn't
on.
do that, by the way.
Oh, you didn't.
But I got hired by a client that told me we know exactly what we want because there was another organization and they did some analysis and we need these 96 KPIs. I was like, how are you going to steer with that information?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Like, if everything is important, nothing is important.
That. And one of the analogies that we tend to talk about when we do the workshop. So I'm a pilot and I fly small airplanes, usually from like the 60s and the 70s. And if you look back to cars from that era, that's a dashboard.
Yeah.
What do you have? You have a speedometer, you have sometimes a tachometer, probably something that shows you which gear you're in. And that's it. You do not have 65 blinking lights. Well, these days you do if you drive electric cars, but it was all about what are the basic stuff you need. It's the same in an airplane. I have my 6-pack. Those are the 6 instruments that I need to safely fly the airplane. That's it. Sure, I have a ton of other things to look at if I want to, but those are not the key message.
No, and I think where this went wrong is in your car, it's really designed for the driver, for that one person driving. And in a plane, I guess, for the pilot or the pilots. What's happening in report creation or dashboard creation is people started to design for everyone. They're like, everyone opening that report could or should be able to find the information. That's why you have 10 pages or 20 pages. That's why you have like 20, 30 slices, filter. Because they're like, yeah, then everyone could open it and just click on the stuff that they need and find it. But the problem is people don't do that. People don't want to do that. Because I don't want to open a report and then click around and hope that I click on the right stuff. I just want to see my information. But I think there was a change in report creation where people just went for we give everyone everything. And then now it feels like a treasure hunt. It feels like, oh, and then I have to search for information. And I think that's mainly because people also overestimate how much people like to work in BI tools. Like we do. I love working in Power BI, but my clients don't. And I think they shouldn't have the need. If they like, that's nice. But they should not be experts in Power BI to be able to use my reports.
So there are so many things popping into my head here. And so we're back to looking at the problem from either a technical perspective or a business perspective.
Yeah.
And looking at it from a technical perspective, we have the data. And the data is in one data set. Let's start with that. So it would make sense to have one report that you can slice and dice in every way, shape, and form that you can think of because you have the same data. From a technical standpoint, that makes sense. From a user standpoint, not at all. But we're back to who is making the report. If it's a technical guy, this one, it might make more sense to do it that way. Also, if someone said, well, we can add the role level security so we can make sure that you only get to see the data that you're supposed to see, might be a solution to a problem that you don't really have, or it might not be. So really coming back to the consumer. And you said another thing that I really love, and you again showed something that absolutely blew my mind. You doing filtering and highlighting of the data for the user that is looking at the report. The first time I saw it, it was just, of course, that's obvious. Why didn't I think of that? Which is a common theme whenever you do reports and I see them. But yeah, so what's your take on designing for the user in that aspect?
We should really do that. And that's also why I started doing that using conditional formatting. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
For my clients, but in a useful way. I see a lot of people use conditional formatting just to color stuff, like to have the highest and lowest value, even though that's not answering any question someone has.
No, but it's cool.
Yeah, it changes colors. But I really believe that we should create something that makes sense. But to do that, we need to know the actions I want to take. Because if I know this is important, this is an important number, if this number is different from a certain standard, that means something important, then I want to highlight that information for that person. Maybe there are 10 people looking at the report and they have like different parts of the report important to them. Then I don't want to highlight all the stuff that is important for someone else. I really want to make sure that that one person looking at their report, because it should feel like their report, get the information they need and can take actions. And yes, that takes more time. And that's something I hear a lot when I post about these things online. People are like, yeah, but that takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of extra effort. Yes, because you are really creating something for the user. Of course, that takes extra effort. Why is it only allowed to take like an hour or 2 hours? Like, who said there's a limit there? People are like, oh, if I can't do it in like 5 minutes, then it's too much work. Why? Maybe it takes half an hour to implement something that really works for that person, which means they use the report for years. They can take all the actions they want to take. It's part of their process. And then that's fine.
So we've been around since Power BI started existing, and we've heard the slogan 5 seconds to set up, 5 minutes to wow, so many times. And somewhere along the line, I think Power BI in particular, but BI in general, sort of kind of fell prey to the idea that this is simple.
Yeah.
And I would argue that the better something is, the less simple it is going to be. It's going to look super simple and super easy, but the easier it looks, the harder it is to get there.
Yeah.
Sort of kind of like I always use Apple hardware as a reference. Joni Ive was adamant that you were done with your design when you could no longer take something out. But getting there is super difficult. And that's why your reports, they look so simple. And when you do the videos, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But how did you get there? So it turns out that Valerie as a service is very expensive. And that's, I think that's one of the reasons why people look at a Power BI report. I mean, how hard can it be? And this is where things start to go sideways, right?
Yeah. People just like to take shortcuts.
Oh, yeah.
And now it feels like I'm like blaming the developers, but that's not entirely true, because businesses also like these shortcuts. They say, we don't have a budget, we don't have time. This canvas, every time I go to a client and tell them about this, the first reaction is not, oh, that's so nice that you created a canvas and that you have all these questions that you want to discuss with us. The first reaction is always like, oh, do we need to fill that in? And I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
will fill it in for you while we have this
Yeah.
discussion, and I will share it with you, because this is also my documentation for you and for me. So we know what we agreed on. But the first reaction is always like, oh, we need to put in effort. And I learned to just go on and say, yes, this is important.
Mhm.
We need to fill this in because I want you to get a report that really works for you.
Mhm.
And I can only create that report if we go through these questions, if I understand you, your business, your actions, the processes. So yes, we will fill that in first. But a lot of people, consultants, BI creators, they're just like, oh, they don't have time. Okay, because they don't want to get into trouble. The business side can be very aggressive.
Sure.
They can be very like, no, I don't have time. So it's like from two sides, I think. Like creators often want to take the shortcut, but the business also wants to take the shortcut.
Yeah, and we're looking at preconceptions, right? So if the business thinks that it's buying a report,
Yeah.
like you go to the supermarket and you buy a jug of milk,
Yeah.
but they tend to forget the fact that in order for this milk to be tailored to you, you're going to jump through a couple of hoops to get there, which sort of kind of brings us to one of my pet peeves, the message.
The message.
And have you any example of a good message or a bad
Good
message?
Well, let's first define the message. The key message, that's something I ask my clients. Before I make any assumptions, I ask them, what is the key message that this report should have? And often they struggle. They're like, how do you mean key message? And
Sales.
some of my clients even think key message means there's only one visual on their report.
Oh.
Because it can be a little bit confusing. But what is a key message? What I do is I ask them, can you describe in one sentence, and it can be a very, very long sentence, what the context is, the information, and the actions you want to take with that report. So the context could be, it's like a monthly management team report. So we know it's monthly, we know it's for a certain team. And the information could be like, we want the KPIs of our teams, but we also want some detailed information about, for example, our account managers and how they are performing. And then the action part rolls in. Why do you need these KPIs and how these account managers are performing?
Right.
So that could be, well, we as a management team, we look at the numbers. If we see we don't hit our target, the first thing we are looking at the first thing we do is we go to our account manager to have a look into what's going on. Why did we not hit our target? And then they will look into their information to see why they didn't hit the target. Now, having that message gives you already a very good idea that they're looking for more.
Exactly.
They're looking for more than the KPIs and the information about the account manager, because you see the action is they're going to have a conversation. So we know they're going to have a conversation with each other. Why not provide information for that conversation? Because apparently that's important. So getting a message like this helps you also to understand the process, what's going to happen. And it helps me to pinpoint what they're actually looking for. Because in first instance, they would tell me, well, we need a monthly report to see how we're performing. They will not tell you, and then we talk to these people, and that means...
No, that's implied in their knowledge of the business process.
Exactly. So I asked them to create or formulate that key message for me, because then they have to think about their process and what they want to do. And then I can ask questions about that. And often the first key message that we define is not entirely the key message at the end, because it evolves, because they start thinking about, hey, what do we actually want? What do we actually need?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And you asked for an example of a key message that's not a key message. And that's, we all know that one, a sales report with sales information and the actions we are going to take, where we will have a look into that once it is created. And what's your experience with reports that are created like that, where people say, we will have a look into this later?
So it tends to become a mess.
Yeah.
At best, you're going to have a lot of numbers to look at. And since we're extremely good at finding patterns, we're going to find some patterns, just not necessarily the pattern that we should be looking at. Also, we're extremely bad at staying on target. Squirrel,
Yeah.
we just run off. So no, that is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But staying on that, if someone cannot describe what the report should do, two questions: how how do you know that that's the case? How do you know that they are not able to describe in detail to the level that you need? And what will you do?
Well, how you know, you will realize very fast if they can't
When they start
answer.
faltering halfway through the sentence,
Yeah. Yeah, then you know. How can I help them? How can we help them if they don't really know what to do? Well, there are few tricks. Like I have some key messages formulated, like examples,
mm,
and I show them like this is what other people um,
in similar situations
in
face.
similar
Yep.
situations said. This can be tricky because then they will just pick one of these examples. But what I also try to do in these cases is really having a conversation about, okay, but what is your business? You wake up in the morning, you get to the office, or you're working from home, you open your laptop. What are you doing? I just try to have a conversation with them to
hmm
find out what they're going through. And then I ask questions. So, is that important information? Oh, so you're talking to a certain person. Do you need information for that?
hmm hmm
I just try to pinpoint what is going on because sometimes having this conversation style can be very helpful. Um, I also, if they're really, really clueless, sometimes that happens. I get hired by like a CEO, a CFO, and they're not the people going to use the report.
hmm
So they're having a lot of trouble formulating these messages. And I already know I need to talk to someone else. I need to talk to
hmm
the people that are actually going to use the report. But to still get an idea, I have a portfolio which I can just show of similar reports. So I have a discussion about, well, these people also asked for that information. They got a report like this, and another company got a report like this. And of course, it's not real data, but having some examples ready can help. We just need to make sure that they're not trying to say, I want that.
Because I'm going to throw you a curveball, and that is, if you already have the examples and you've been at this for so many years, why don't you already have the answers to just give them, well, this is what you need? You can say whatever you want, dear customer. I know that this is what you need, and you will have it, and you will like it,
Yeah.
and then you will pay me.
Yeah, because they will not use it. These are all these reports that you can buy.
Uh-huh.
There are a lot of companies that create reports like that, and they're not even expensive, which already should be a warning sign because creating reports takes a lot of time.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's there's no one size fits all with these reports because even if you have two companies and they are doing the same thing, still the people working there are different. They're not just the same people. They have different targets, they have different goals, maybe different level of experience, like how they look at a report. Maybe their team has a different constellation, processes are different. Because just because you have two human resource departments doesn't mean that both departments work the same way and look at things the same way. And I the people are the most important part. You really need to know them to be able to create something for them. I could always use like one of my reports as a template, as a starting point,
Mhm.
just like the canvas. But the the people looking at the report make such a big difference. And I created hundreds of reports. and none of them are the same because companies are different. And I think it's a trap, these reports where they tell you just pay $2,000 and you get a report. It's a trap because people buy the report
Mhm.
and then they need to hire the person that sells them
Yeah.
as a consultant to make it work. And then they have another client.
And in buying something for, let's just say, $2,000, it also comes with the buyer's remorse. I just spent $2,000. I need to make sure that I get something out of this. But what you're saying is, it's not about the technology. It's about the people. Always about the
It's
people.
always about the people
Huh.
because the people take the action.
Yeah.
And I love to create really fancy reports, like really highly visual. I love doing that. But it's not about that design part also. It's always about the people that are going to take actions, that are going to do stuff. And then I will make it pretty for them.
Within the space that report offers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that brings us to another aspect of this. If people don't know what they want and you give them something, what inevitably will happen is they're going to go, yeah, this is awesome, but can you just tweak this a bit? And then you do that. And then it's like an old basic program, 10 print hello, 20 go to 10. And you just keep doing it. How do you get out of that trap? And how do you create a definition of done?
The definition of done is tricky because if you ask the client what's the definition of done, they say the report.
Yeah.
And then you're trapped in there because the report is never finished. There is no real definition of done for report because reports evolve. The people evolve, data evolves, you get more information. Also, if people work with a report, they sometimes get new questions. They're like, oh, now I have this information. Can we also have more information? So it's very, very normal that reports evolve and just go on. What is the definition of done then? Is you need to agree on like this minimum product that they will get. So I make sure that I know the people that are going to test the report. I make sure I know all the stakeholders, and I agree on, okay, we want a human resource report. There's certain information that we put in there. You want to take certain actions.
Yep.
And when we achieve that you can take these actions based on these numbers, that's like our minimum product. Then that is done. And from that moment on, we go into a second phase, basically, where we agree on more visualization, on these kind of things. But reports are never done. And that's why it's also so dangerous that companies often think, and I'm a consultant, so they think we will just hire you for 100 hours.
Yeah.
And then it's done, and then you leave. And I tell them, okay, but we need some training. We need to tell or educate someone about how to work with that report. We need to show them how they can make the report or evolve it, edit it, these kind of things. And often they're like, no. Once we have the report, people will just use it. And that's how you create report that no one's using. Because you have the definition of done for the basic stuff, but there will be evolvement there. Things change. So it's important to realize if you want to work with any BI tool, you need to put in effort. You need to have the people to support it. You need to have, like, if it's not someone external or if it's a consultant you're hiring, you need to make sure that they also tell the people that are actually working at your company, how it works. And you need to have someone in your company that's super enthusiastic about data.
Mm.
That's like the key. And keeping that person,
Yeah.
because it's never done. And I don't know why people got the idea that a report is done. Like,
I might just have the answer to that because it just popped into my head.
tell me.
So many times when we talk about reports, the first idea that comes into people's heads are financial reports.
Yeah.
And a P&L statement has probably looked the same and behaved the same for, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
And if that is your first idea of what a report is and what a report does, that is by definition static, because you do not mess with finance. You do not start creating fancy visuals and new creative ways of doing math. You just don't, because one does not simply mess with economics and financials. But if you take that mindset and you look at other aspects of information, then you have an incorrect supposition from the get-go. That might be a reason why people have the preconception that reports are static.
Yeah.
Because I agree, the better the report is, the more it is going to give you an opportunity to ask more questions.
Yeah.
Which in turn is going to drive a need to answer those questions. Or maybe the question itself unlocks new avenues of exploration, right?
Yeah.
So that's it's the dichotomy between definition of done and not drowning in new ideas.
Yeah.
But then again, we're consultants, so we like when people have ideas and want us to explore them, right?
Yeah. But I understand your answer. And
But
no, not but. And what I've seen is even with the finance reports, because I create a lot of these profit and loss statements,
Sure.
even with these finance statements, things are changing. Like sometimes because they realize, hey, I can have more than this Excel-like experience. So now I have my profit and loss statement, but well, it would be nice to filter for some things. It would be nice to have like a year to date versus last year comparison. It would be nice to have rolling 12 months, just because they never had the opportunity to do it.
so are you saying that they were previously constrained by the tools that were available?
Yeah, because that was what they all knew. That was what they all used. But now there are possibilities. And I see with my clients, it's going very slowly, but they have actually ideas like, could we also look at it like this? And this gives us actually more insights. So even these very static reports are slowly changing. Not as fast as like my sales reports, because sales reports often are like, can we try things?
Yep.
And there are so many aspects to look at. And finance is very, they have a lot of rules how stuff happens,
Yeah,
which is good. But I see some shift in there. I
okay.
see it. And that's quite fun to see, because you see that people at that moment realize that they have more possibilities.
Yeah, and that's where I feel that I can really move the needle in ways that the client might not even have realized.
Yeah.
And that's where BI really becomes something more than just a report or just a tool.
Yeah, and it also means that the clients or the people that we create for get more comfortable with the tool, because adding stuff to a report does not mean the report is bad. Often people think that, like, oh, we have a report and now we need changes, so that means what we had was wrong. But that's not right. Often people get comfortable. They're like, oh, now I have this information. This looks exactly like what I had in Excel or any other tool.
Mhm.
And now I want to see what I can do more. And I have ideas. And that's good, because that means they work with it. They look at it. They see the room for new ideas. So that's not something bad.
No, that's a very good point. So as we're starting to wrap this up, how do we deal with the classic objection? Oh, we don't have time for this. We need to make this faster.
Well,
I'm a huge proponent for baseball bats, but you've told me repeatedly that that is not how you make people
no, we're
change.
not beating the clients.
Okay,
Um,
just even
not a bit.
okay.
No. Um, so, I mean, that's also what we kind of started with, that people are telling us we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Something that I really try to make sure is my clients know that we invest this time for them.
Mhm.
We need to have this meeting. We need to test this. We need to do all of that so you get a report that works for you. So you get something that you can use to take actions. So instead of saying, you have a report and now you can do stuff, which often happens. People say, now you have a sales report and you can monitor your sales. Why? Where's that action we talked about?
Yeah.
I try to make sure to tell them, well, we are creating this report for you to take these and these actions so you can do this and this and this, and you can have these discussions, and actually showing them the value. Because if you show people the value of why they should use something or why they should invest time, they are more willing to spend their time. If I just tell them I want to talk about the sales report, they're like, oh, I can send you a mail. But if I tell them I want to talk about the sales report so you can have that meeting next week with confidence, so
Yeah,
you save
yeah,
more
yeah.
time, these kind of things, they're willing to do that. Because often people need to have the what's in it for me.
Exactly. Incentive.
Yeah, incentive. What's in it for me? Why should I do this?
Yeah. And just like where we need to have the client explain to us what action do you want to take, we as creators or consultants, we need to be able to explain why should you use this.
Yeah.
So it's a synergy, so to speak.
Yeah. And as a creator, if you are not able to describe why you created what you created, you should really question what you did there. Because we're always saying the client doesn't know why they want stuff. But sometimes I also question the report creators. Like, you should really think about stuff. And getting back to the canvas, that's why I created it. I want to write down why we are doing stuff, what the reasoning was. Especially, and that's something people often forget. You create that report now. You know all the information now. You had the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You will create 50 other reports in the meantime. You will not remember that stuff. And as a report creator, what I'm doing is I create a lot of these reports, but as a business user, let's say you're a manager and you're working with a report.
Mm-hmm.
You have this 1 hour or 2 hour meeting about the report. Do you really think they remember what they agreed upon 3 months later?
Yet another reason for the canvas, because it serves as a record of what we decided. So you know what the first thought was when you showed me this? Why the insert expletive didn't I have that 5 years ago? Because there's so many times that I wish that I had something like that. It would have made my life so much easier.
And probably you had something similar in your head, because everything I put on there, that's not new stuff.
No.
It's about what's the goal, who's the audience, what am I working with, what's the key message. We all have that kind of in our head, but we tend to forget it and we never put it in that order. At least that's what I experienced. I knew all that stuff, but then I went into the meeting and I just had a good time with my clients. And then I got out of the meeting, got in the car, went home, and then I thought about, I didn't even ask about who's going to test it. Just because it's gone. Like,
Yeah, it fell out of the head. No, that's very true. So we can conclude once again, it's not about the technology, it's about people. And Power BI is a great tool, but that's all it is. It is only a tool.
Yeah.
Extremely important tool, but it's only a tool. So there you go.
yeah,
It's
and
all about the people.
we use the tool to create something for the people.
Mhm.
And I think the most important thing is we need to remember that it's all about actions.
Yeah.
It's about people taking actions. That's what we want to do. That's what we want them to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't take the actions. I
No,
create a
you
report.
can't. You can't, right? It's only the client that can
Yeah.
really take the action.
Yeah.
So we created a workshop, and we've been running that very successfully, making data matter. And we came to the realization that there's an opportunity to tighten this up even more. So we are going to run workshops on the topic of, here are scenarios that you might find yourself in.
Yeah.
How would we use the development canvas? How would we figure out the questions that we need to ask? How do we make this data matter? And what can we do, like literally physically with Power BI
Mhm.
to get there? How do we make the report?
Yeah.
And then how do we explain this report? And how do we adequately make sure that the client knows why to use it? That's what we've packaged into our new workshop.
Yeah.
That is hopefully going to come out and be accepted at conferences. The latter half of 2026.
Yeah, I hope it gets accepted, because that would be awesome to present about it.
You would?
I think we came to an end of this
We did.
podcast.
We did. This was an excellent conversation. Thank you so much for having it.
Thank you for being here with me.
And on that bombshell, I think we're done.
We're done. Thank you.
Thank you for looking in, I should say, or tuning in.